Well, I mentioned the other day that I would come back to this thing when it was done, and it is done. Though, I'll probably be fine tuning it for some time, little changes that I could make. But it's to the point where I can use it now. And I actually put the coat of pine tar on it and burned it in with my handy gas torch. These really are handy. You don't see people using them anymore, but they're really handy. And I noticed, when I did these basswood wedges with the pine tar, that pine tar really goes into the basswood nice. And I've had some plans for some basswood. I was pleased to see how well that absorbed it. Ironwood is a little trickier. It's such a dense wood. I've got two wedges for this, the high one and the low one. But I think I explained, this is oak, the pedal is oak. I pinned it with an ironwood pin that's bigger on the end, so it locks it in there. And the part where it pivots on the front is a 1/2 inch hardwood dowel driven all the way through. And then back here, there are 3/4 inch, a pin that goes all the way through. And I find, usually I just put my foot on it. My right foot seems to work for me best, though you could actually put your foot on the pin. But I wanted the pins on there to be able to lift it, makes it easier when you're rotating the stock. And this is a piece of ironwood I'm working with here. And it works very well. It's at the right height. You get a good swing at it. Okay, what I was saying about people struggling with draw knives, the one thing that I see people do all the time, a draw knife has got a bevel. And they tend to want to run that bevel down. Now that works all right when you're doing real fine finishing, but when you're doing stuff like taking the bark off, it's a lot better to flip it over so the bevel is underneath. You got a lot better control of it because then you're pivoting on that bevel, so you can just control the pitch of the blade a lot better. And it makes a difference which way you're working on the piece. I saw a guy one time, say here's a little knot where a branch comes out. And if you go at them from this way, you're going to have a hell of a time, plus it's going to gouge out behind it. Well, I'll show you. And another thing too, it pays when you go at things like that, go at them at a bit of an angle. But see, that just cuts very hard that direction. You're a lot better off swinging that piece around and going with the angle that the branch came off of it. It'll come off cleaner. But I was at an art show the one time, and there was a guy who had a shaving horse there, and he was selling walking sticks, and he claimed he made these walking sticks. And I watched him for a little bit, and I realized pretty soon that he didn't. I don't know, they were coming out of Mexico or some damn thing, but the one he was working on, there was no way it was anything like the ones that he was selling. But what he was doing, he had the draw knife upside down and working from the wrong direction, and it was just tearing the hell out of the wood, but so I know right away, because the ones that he was trying to sell weren't made that way, so that was kind of a bullshit deal. But you see that, but you find what works for you. But like I say, almost everybody, when you see them with their draw knife, they're going like this with that bevel like this, and it works for really fine shaving. But for taking that bark off, you're a lot better off. And then run the blade at a bit of an angle. Looks a lot better. Because then if you run into something, a little knot or an imperfection, it'll slice it rather than just bang up against it. But I'm pleased with the way the thing worked out. I'll probably go back again after a bit and redo any pieces that are end grain, put more pine tar on them and burn them in again, because end grain is where it really goes in. But it'll do the job very well. You know, you guy can sit there all day and work on it. It wouldn't be a problem. Kind of relaxing to do in a way. One thing I thought I might make a change, a simple thing, and it's not a drastic thing, but you know, the way it is now, it's got no metal fasteners anywhere. It's nothing but wood pegs and friction holding her together. But it would be nice to have some kind of a counter to, so that if you took your foot off, instead of having to go underneath with your foot, if it would raise itself. So what I might do, put a pin in here on the inside and drill a pin like I did in the front, but up high in the back here, and run a dowel through. Then I've got a big flat piece of oak that would work as a spring that I could put underneath that pin there and underneath that pin there. And that would be, you know, strong enough to counter that, to hold that weight up. So I might do that. But, like I say, it's not that hard to hook your foot underneath. And I was going to say, in the doing of this thing, two tools I found really handy are these big heavy rasps. A flat one, which actually has a rasp on the edge too, and this round one. Because a lot of places, like say, in there and in here where I need it to go in tight, but I want it to be able to pivot on the outside. This was nice for just making them holes a little bit bigger. And for taking out just odd irregularities like in the throat here, you know, stuff like that. Rasps are a very handy thing to have. I was especially glad to get this big flat one. I was able to take and round off the corners and stuff really quickly with this, rather than, you know, using a chisel and making them rough. You can do a smooth job with the rasp. You know, any of these parts here that I rounded off, I just rounded off with the rasp, then sanded over them later. But that's the deal. Now I can just keep putting it to work. And ironwood is a job. But, you know, that's like say that pivot in the front now, that's a 1/2 inch piece of ironwood. Now you would think, you know, 1/2 inch if you're used to working with softer wood doesn't sound like much. But a 1/2 inch of ironwood is a lot. And the same like this is actually 3/4. You know, that's plenty strong. The same, this pin back here is 3/4. You know, but 3/4 inch of ironwood is a lot of strength. So I'm pleased with it. Nice to get her functioning again. I can sit and think of all kinds of projects I could use this for now. You know, things like making axe handles or anything like that. And, you know, this design, I wanted it this way because now where it's open on the back, you know, you're able to run a real long piece in there, and then as you work, you just shove it beside you and keep working out. So I'm very satisfied with it. Exactly what I was picturing when I started. So, good tool to have.